make sure to get all the good stuff. But I will post this recording. As I've said, I've learned a little more about the big blue button. Okay, so let's get started right now. I haven't seen anything and nobody's jumped in with any questions. So let's get started right away on time value of money. So what I'd like to do is I'm actually following along in the book. I'm using the example in the book, but honestly, the example in the book, because I'm recording, I'm not going to use the word stupid. I'll use the word too simple. Okay, so what I did was for each one of the 4 basic problems, what I've done is I've given the example from the book, but I've given a more complex and real life example as well. So let's get going. The first topic that we're going to talk about is simple interest. So make sure you're on the tab. It should open up in the Excel file. If you're following along, which I highly recommend, you should be on the tab that says simple interest. So simple interest is for periods of 1 year or less. Yeah, I know. I feel like sighing too. For periods of 1 year or less. Now, basically, we're going to use 2 formulas to calculate simple interest. The first formula that we're going to use is the interest. And the interest can either be earned or incurred, because whenever you have an interest situation, there always has to be a lender and a borrower. So if I'm borrowing from my car loan, Amy, I think it's you. Can you put yourself on mute? Thank you. I don't think it's Amy, because somebody needs to be on mute. I think it's Amy. No, I'm hearing a buzzing in the background and a lot of noise in the background. So unless you're talking, can you put yourself on mute? Can I mute everybody? I'm not familiar with the blue button.
It's in the elevator somewhere.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. It sounds like somebody's in an elevator. So
It was
whoever
an
is
elevator. He was getting off an elevator.
Oh, okay. So whoever's in the elevator, can you please mute yourself? Thank you. Okay. Now we're talking once again for periods of 1 year or less. So what I was saying is that interest earned and interest incurred is basically the same thing. So if I have a car loan, I'm the borrower, but the bank is the lender. Whatever calculations that I use for the interest paid and the amounts paid, the bank is going to receive, and that is going to be their interest earned. So all the calculations is the same. It just really matters whether you're paying the money or receiving the money, whether you're borrowing or lending. So in this chapter, we're going to focus a lot more on the calculations, but I'll make sure to tell you which side we're on. So in this case, when we're talking about simple interest, the interest amount is calculated as the principal multiplied by the rate multiplied by the time factor. So I'm just going to describe each one very quickly, because this lesson is more on compound interest. And feel free to jump in at any time. Let me unlock the people who have just come in. Oh, I am thrilled that people are here. Let me make sure to unlock the people who are locked. I think that is it. And I'm going to apologize again, but I'm just feeling sick, so I didn't think it was safe for me to go to campus. So let me define these terms. Principal is the amount at the beginning. So we found, for example, in one of the homework problems in Chapter 6, that we make payment at the end of the year. That's not the principal, because the principal is what happens at the beginning of the time, not at the end of the time. The end of the time is what is known as the maturity value, and maturity value is always principal plus interest. Now, here's one of the most important things, and if you only get this fact from this lecture and nothing else, I'll be somewhat happy, although I hope you get everything from this lecture because interest concepts are just absolutely amazing. And once you understand it, you see it all around you. So there are a lot of problems in your personal life, like borrowing for a house, borrowing for a car, making investments, saving for retirement, that use these concepts so you can become a very informed consumer. So anyway, something very important is the interest rate is always quoted on an annual basis. So for example, if I talk about my car loan that's 7.8%, I don't pay 7.8% per month, even though my car loan is per month. I don't pay 7.8% over the 6-year term of my car loan. What happens is I pay 7.8% every year on the unpaid principal balance, and I predict that within an hour and a quarter, that concept will be really, really easy for you. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out is there are always people out there who try to trick you. And when you take a look at the tab called Applications, when we get there towards the end, we're going to learn how to calculate an interest rate when somebody kind of lies to you about the interest rate. Now, one very, very common way that people lie to you about the interest rate is quoting it in non-standard terms. So an example that I always give of that would be if you asked me my weight and I told you my weight in kilograms, or I told you my weight on the moon. Now, in both cases, my weight would be something like 67, or 70 or something like that. But why would I give you that in non-standard terms? The only reason that I would do that is to confuse you. So people oftentimes try to confuse you that you're paying a lower interest rate than you actually are. So for example, if you read a credit card notification and they say, oh, you're only paying 2% per month. Well, 2% per month is a non-standard. So in your head, I'm going to show you when we get to the Applications tab how to really annualize an interest rate. But a quick way to annualize an interest rate is take 2% per month, multiply it by 12 months in a year, you're paying around 24% interest, not 2% interest. So you always have to make sure that if somebody gives you a rate per month, or even in places like Rent-A-Center, their rates are so high that they will even quote it on a per week basis instead of a per month basis, because once again, they're trying to trick you. 0.75% per week wouldn't sound too bad until you multiply that by 52 weeks in the year, and you're paying like a 40% interest rate per year. Okay? Any questions on that one? Super, super important concept. And I'll teach you how to annualize rates as well, which is doing it in Excel is super easy. You just bring up the function and it just does it for you. So finally, the time factor becomes what fraction of a year is the loan active. So I just have some calculations over here. So let's say, for example, that you save $1,000 at 10%. So if you save for $1,000 at 10%, how much interest would you earn over 1 year? And what would the maturity value be? Remember, maturity value is always principal plus the interest. That was the second formula that I want. So once we calculate the interest, in this case our principal is 1,000 because that's what we're putting into the bank. So 1,000 plus whatever interest we earn is going to be the maturity value. Everybody ready to go? Anybody need any more time to get ready? Okay, so if it's 1 year, our principal would be $1,000. Our rate is given in the problem is 10%. In Excel, you could use either 0.10 or 10 followed by the percent key. You can't use 10 because that's 1,000%. No, 1,000%. I was exactly right. And for the maturity value, we just take 1,000 plus the interest. So if we're going to save for 1 year, we would take 1,000, our principal, multiply it by 10%. Notice how I always start a formula with an equal sign in Excel. If I don't start a formula with an equal sign, it's like I'm typing. It will only display the formula. If I start a formula with an equal sign, when I hit enter, it'll display the answer. So for 1 year, I would multiply it by 12 over 12 or 1. So I can just take 1,000 times 10%. So if I left my money in the bank for 1 year, I would have $100 of interest. So for my maturity value, I would have $1,000. And then just to make things easy on us for the future, I'm going to add the interest, but I'm going to click on cell B4. So all I'll have to do is copy the maturity formula down. I won't have to put the same formula in 4 times. Trust me, we're going to do amortization charts in a few moments. And when we get to car payments, we're going to have a 60-line amortization chart, and we're only going to have to put data and formulas into 1 line. Even if it's 60 lines, we're only going to do 1 line. So super cool. I'm so excited. So if we start off with $1,000 and we earn interest of $100, we'll have $1,100 in maturity value. Now, if we save $1,000 for 6 months, we would take principal of 1,000, multiply it by our rate of 10%, and then multiply it by the time factor. 6 months, our time factor would be 6/12. So we would earn half of a full year's interest because we're putting it in for half of a year. So we would earn $50 of interest. And now I can use that fill handle. I think I demonstrated it before. That little box in the bottom right-hand corner. Swipe over it, you have a skinny plus. 4-headed arrow is different. Skinny plus, left mouse button, drag it down. My maturity value is now $1,050 because I've earned $50 in interest. Everybody following along okay? Just let me know if you have questions. Let me know if I'm going too fast. If we're going to put the money in for 3 months, equals 1,000 multiplied by 10%, multiplied by 3/12. We hit enter. And now we have $25. And now, of course, our maturity value would be $1,025. And we can even use the formula with 67 days. So I would take 1,000, multiply it by 10%, and then multiply it by that fraction of a year, 67 divided by 365. Now, often in accounting, we will use a 360-day year instead of a 365-day year. I think it's chapter 8 or something. We do the short-term receivables. And I have us, actually, it may be the next chapter. I have us in the lab the next time for counting days. So that will come up in a future chapter. So we could do the 67 over 365. If we're on a 360 basis, we could do 67 over 360. And honestly, the difference is not going to be very large, and interest accruals are meant to be estimates anyway. So in this case, we would earn interest of $18.36. And of course, our maturity value would be $1,018.36. Any questions before we move on? Everybody doing okay? I see Courtney has said good. Anybody else? Questions? Okay, having fun so far? Oh, we're going to have a ton of fun now. Much more fun than this. So now what I'd like you to do is we're going to go tab by tab. FVSP is future value of a single payment. PVSP is present value of a single payment. FVA is future value of an annuity. And PVA, present value of an annuity. And then I just have some fun applications that we can do at the end, including my world famous car payment calculator. I love doing my car payment calculator. So much fun for me. So I'm just going to click over here to future value of a single payment, and I'm just going to use Excel for note-taking for just a moment. Now, once we get into periods of above 1 year, we get into something called compounding. The process of compounding means that you calculate how much interest you've earned or incurred at that point, add it into the principal, and now the new inflated value actually earns or incurs interest from that point forward. So compounding means that you actually start to earn interest on your interest if you're an investor, but if you're a borrower, you start to pay interest on the interest unless you pay it off. Okay, so there's just a couple of things that we have to learn with compounding, and then we can go right into the problems. So the first thing that we have to learn with compounding is that with interest, there are 4 basic problems. I have already talked about them for a moment. There is the future value of a single payment. There's the present value of a single payment. There's the future value of an annuity, and I will explain all these terms as we go through. And present value of an annuity. Excuse me. Okay, sorry. With some combination, with any one or some combination of these 4 basic problems, you can solve any problem that involves interest and current payments and future payments and investing or borrowing, basically any problem that you can conceive of that relates to either earning interest or accruing interest for more than 1 year is either one of these 4 basic problems or some combination of these 4 basic problems. Okay, so once we get through the 4 basic problems, again, I'll show you applications, but even as we start, I'll show you applications of the first one. Okay, so now before we get going, using the interest charts, which I'm going to show you very reluctantly because your book mentions them, but showing you the interest charts is like showing you how to do calculations on an abacus. Oh, thank you. Yes, Lizette, go to the module for this week and download the worksheet for time value of money. I'm sorry, I got... Okay. Sorry, moving on. Okay, so if we're going to use the interest charts, there are a couple of calculations that we need, and they are going to come up in Excel too, but they're not going to come up the exact same way. So the first calculation that we need to do is little I. I think my Excel is going to turn my little I into a capital I. Yes, it does, because this is a new laptop. I normally change the autocorrect because that thing drives me crazy. But even though my worksheet says a capital I, once I hit enter, I'm going to try to change it back to a little I. Little I is the interest rate per period. And the way you calculate it is to take the annual rate and you're going to divide it by the number of compounding periods in 1 year. So for example, if I told you that I was making payments once a year, then the number of compounding periods in 1 year would be 1. So my I would be my annual rate divided by the number 1. If I was telling you that I was making payments 2 times a year, then I would have 2 compounding periods because I would earn half a year's interest, stop and calculate it, add the interest, and then calculate the second half year of interest. So in that case, I would have to take the annual rate and divide by 2. If I was talking about quarterly payments, I would have to take the annual rate and divide by 4. And if I'm talking about monthly payments like a car loan or a mortgage, I would need to take the annual rate and divide by 12 to calculate I. Everybody good with that? Okay, and the second one we're going to calculate is N. Hopefully it will let me do a little n. N is the total number of compounding periods. And you calculate that by taking the number of years and multiplying it by the number of periods in 1 year. So for example, if I was talking about a 5-year car loan, I would have to take 5 years and multiply it by 12 because I make 12 payments a year on a car loan. So 5 times 12 would be an N of 60. I would have 60 total payments. Okay, everybody good? Questions? Okay, we're ready to go. So we should be on the first tab right now, FVSP. So in your book, the example that they have is that you save $1,000 for 3 years at 10%. Now they showed an example with annual compounding. I'm going to show an example with semi-annual compounding. So the problem that we're working with right now, future value of a single payment, is where you make a deposit into a savings account. You make no further deposits or withdrawals. And you want to know what the maturity value is, what you're going to have at the end of the deposit period. Okay? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to solve the problems using formulas. So I'm going to show you how to solve this problem. Just get the answer. What is the value at the end of the investment period? First, using a mathematical formula. Then we're going to use Excel. Then I'm going to show you how to do an amortization chart. And again, with an amortization chart, we're not going to have to go all the way down to 3 or 6 or 12. We're just going to be able to do the formula on the first line and copy it down. So now, using a formula, the formula that we're going to use to calculate the future value of an annuity is you take the amount and you multiply it by 1 plus I. This is why I told you about calculating little I to the power of n. So if we're talking 3 years and annual compounding, I should be writing this down over here. So let me cut this and let me paste that over there where we can see it. Okay, so in this case, our I is going to be 10% divided by 1 because it's annual compounding, which of course is 10%. Our N is going to be 3 times 1, which of course equals 3. So all we'd have to do to calculate the future value is take $1,000 and multiply it by 1 plus 10% is 1.1. If you know that, that's fine. But in Excel, you can open the parentheses and do 1 plus 10%. And we want to do it for 3 years. So in Excel, power is the little hat. So it's shift and then the number 6 on your keyboard. So little shift 6 to the power of 3. So if I put $1,000 into a savings account for 3 years and I earn 10% a year, compounded one time a year, at the end of the 3-year period, I will have $1,331 in my savings account. Did everybody get that answer okay? Let me know if you need me to zoom in more. Yes? Zoom in more? Is that a yes? I can very easily do that. Okay? Now, if we're going to solve the same problem, 3 years at 10%, but
Can you
now...
look at the formula for the FV annual again? I
Sure.
apologize.
Yeah, it didn't work for me either.
No problem. Go ahead. Can you see it now? Let me know if it works or if it doesn't work. Did it work? Yes? Yes, no?
No, it didn't.
Yes or no?
To me, it did. For Mitchell, he say no.
Mitchell's saying no?
I put a equals 1,000 times, and it's not turning into a
Try hitting escape and trying again and hitting the exact same keystroke. So hit escape. Just start again.
I have that.
Okay, equals 1000. Now instead of 1 plus 10%, just try 1.1 and hat 3. Did that work? Did you get 1331? Okay, good.
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. Now let's try semi-annual. So with semi-annual, the only difference is now our I is going to be 10% divided by 2, because with semi-annual, they're going to compound 2 times a year. So this time we would use an I of 5% instead of 10%. And with this problem, our N is now, I should have had an equal sign up there, is now going to be 3 years, but we have 2 payments a year. So it's going to be 3 times 2, which of course equals 6. I'm just using Excel as a typewriter, not right now. So for the semi-annual, we would type in the formula equals 1,000, 1000, asterisk. And now for those of you who know math, you could just do 1.05 to the power of 6. But again, I'm going to open my parentheses, 1 plus 5%, close my parentheses, and then hat and the number 6. So just like the formula that I showed you before, you take the amount and you multiply it by 1 plus I to the power of N. If you ever take a finance class, that formula is really famous. 1 plus I to the power of N. Okay, so now I hit enter. Now I've actually earned a little bit more interest, because now my interest every 6 months is earning interest instead of my interest at the end of the year. And I'll show you a little bit better how that works once we get to the amortization chart. Now, if we're using quarterly, our I would now become 10% divided by 4, which of course is 2.5%. And our N would now equal 3 times 4, right? 3 years multiplied by 4 payments a year. So our N would be 12. So we just put in the formula exactly the same way. I would take $1,000, multiply it by, open parentheses, 1 plus 2.5%, close parentheses, to the power of 12. And then I would just hit enter, and I should have a number a little bit more than 1,340. Now, I am going to tell you that this way to solve the problem is very old-fashioned, and other than in this class, and maybe for a CPA exam in your future, you will probably never use this formula again. So I'm going to show you a much easier way to solve this problem. Okay, so we hit enter, and now the answer is 1344.89. Anybody need help before we move on? Okay, let's see a much more newfangled way to solve this problem. So Excel has all sorts of functions relating to interest. So in Excel, if you go to the Formulas tab, in the function library, you're going to see a button that says Financial. If you click the down arrow, virtually every formula in here is somehow related to interest rate, net present value, which you'll learn in the second semester, and there's a few on like depreciation, but most of these are for interest and bonds. So it's amazing how many different functions there are relating to interest. So what I want you to do is I want you to click in cell B12. I want you to click on the Formulas tab and in Financial, and just like it says in the worksheet, I want you to look for the function that says FV. So FV says it returns the future value of an investment based on periodic constant payments and a constant interest rate. So if we're using annual, our rate is 10%, or if you want, you could use the 10% divided by 1. If we're using annual, the number of periods is 3 because it's over 3 years. Now, in this case, we want to skip over the PMT box because if we put 1,000 in the PMT box, then it would be that we're putting $1,000 each year into the fund. That actually comes on tab 3. So we're going to come there really soon. But for right now, we're going to skip over the PMT and we're going to go into the PV box. PV is the present value or the lump sum amount that it's worth now. Since we're making an investment, when we make an investment, we spend money. So we have to put it in as a negative 1,000. And notice when I put in the 1,000, I get the same answer, 1331, as I got with the formula. So this is a heck of a lot easier than the formula, right? You just put in the I, N, and the amount, right? And it spits it right back at you. So did that work okay for everybody? A lot easier than the formula, huh? You don't even have to remember the formula. All you have to remember is FV. So just to prove that the FV function works, we're just going to try it for semi-annual. And by the way, the answer comes up already formatted in dollar because Excel assumes that if you're using FV, you're always talking about money because interest is always money. It can never be units or pounds or anything like that. It's always money. Okay, if that makes sense. So let's try our FV function again with a semi-annual. So I'm going to click in cell B13 and I'm going to do financial and the same one again, FV. Now this time in my rate, I'm going to put 10% / 2. I could calculate 10% divided by 2 in my head or in a calculator and then put the answer in there, but that's silly. Let the computer do it. And you're going to find that in the future applications, I'm going to use weird interest rates like 4.7 and 9.3. So what's 9.3% divided by 12? In Excel, it's 9.3% divided by 12, right? We don't have to worry about it anymore. So in the number of periods, I'm just going to put 3 years multiplied by 2 payments per year. I don't put the equal signs in here. I just put the formulas in the box. So notice the answer comes up as 6. And then I have to do the same thing. I have to skip over to the PV. And because I'm making an investment, I put in a negative 1,000. If I forget the negative sign, what happens is my answer comes out as a negative number, because then I'm modeling that I'm borrowing 1,000 today and would have to pay back 1,340 in the future. So notice when I click OK, I get the same answer, 1340.0956 rounds to 1340.10. Did that work okay for everybody? Pretty cool, huh? Oh, we're going to get a lot more cool than this. Oh.
Yep.
Oh, I love this stuff. I love this stuff so much. And we're going to get so cool. I am so hoping that at the end we get to my car payment calculator, and I have a retirement calculator and all sorts of cool stuff. So let's amortize this thing. Now, this just gives us the answer, but as accountants, we need to know how much interest that we earn each period in order to do the adjusting entries. So in order to know how much interest we're going to earn each amortization period, we're going to do an amortization chart. So the reason why I have a year 0 on this amortization chart is, you'll see once I construct it, if we have a year 0, then we can put 3 formulas in here, in these 3 cells, and even if it was 5,000 lines long, we would only need those 3 formulas and then just copy it down 1,000 lines and we'd be done. So if you have a mortgage that has 360 periods, you only have to put in the information on line 1, copy it down, and you're all done. Okay, so everybody ready to go? So we're going to put $1,000 into the fund. So in the year 0 or period 0, we put in that first amount in the ending balance. So I'm just going to type in the $1,000. Later on, I'm going to show you how you can actually do a variable amortization chart. So I could have a holder cell up here for the $1,000 that we're putting into the fund. And then we'd have to change this number only, and the entire amortization chart would work. We wouldn't have to change anything in this chart. But we're just pretty basic right now. So what's going to happen in our chart is the beginning balance for one period is the same as the ending balance for the period before. So whatever we end up with at the end of year 1, that same amount is going to be our opening balance for year 2. So the first formula that we're going to put in cell B19 is I'm going to type an equal sign, and I'm going to click on the ending balance, cell D18, for year 0, the $1,000. I can't type the $1,000. You have to put in the formulas as I'm putting them in, otherwise it will not work. Okay, and again, I can see that I'm recording this, and I know how to do the recordings right now, so I will make 100% sure that this is posted. So I'm going to hit enter. Now we're going to calculate the interest. Now, because each one of these periods is 1 year or less, we have to use the basic interest formula. So to calculate the interest, we take the principal, multiply it by the rate, and then multiply it by the time factor. So in cell C19, to calculate the interest, we don't want to type 1,000 in, because then we're always going to calculate simple interest on 1,000. So we want to tell Excel to take whatever the beginning balance is. So I'm going to click on cell B19. I'm going to multiply it by my interest rate of 10%. And then I have to multiply it by the time factor. In this case, because it's annual, I would multiply it by 12 over 12 or 1. So I can just leave it off for the annual. I made sure to do an amortization chart with semi-annual, so you know how that works as well. Everybody following along? Am I going too fast? Okay, good. So now I'm going to hit enter.
Can you put the C19 again? Because by mistake it was writing on the...
There you go. So for C19, you want to type, hold on, let me delete it. So for C19, you want to type an equal sign. You want to take whatever the beginning balance is on that same row. So for me, it would be B19. I want to multiply it by the interest rate and then multiply it by the time factor. In this case, because it's annual, I would multiply by 12 by 12, so I can just leave it off. We won't leave it off in the next amortization chart. Are you okay now?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, good. Hit enter to accept the formula. And now the last even if this was 1,000 lines, last formula that we're going to need. Our ending balance is our beginning balance plus our interest. So now I hit enter. Now I should be able to just select all these three, and I could technically just double click the fill handle. The problem is that because it's copying these cells, it'll change my 1,000 to 1,001 and 1,000 to 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click on the beginning balance, cell B19, and I'm just going to use that fill handle to copy it down. Oh, it's not 1,000. That's never mind. I had a momentary lapse. I'm sorry. That's why I used the line 0. Select these three cells. And really all you have to do is double click the fill handle, but you can just use it to drag it down. And notice how we come down to the same answer, 1331. But
Can I see quick D19, please?
C19?
D.
Oh, D19?
Uh-huh.
Just add the two together, B19, C19.
Oh, it's add. Okay. Because I put multiply.
Yep. Now you have to add. Remember, our maturity value is principal plus interest, right? So column B is our principal and column C is our interest. So our maturity value is always our principal plus our interest.
Okay, now it works.
Now it works?
Yes.
Everybody get the same answer? So now as an accountant, we know how much interest we've earned each year, right? Using the formula, we only know the answer, but using the amortization chart, we know how much interest we've earned each year. Now, let's just do the same thing with semi-annual. And I think I'm not going to do quarterly because quarterly would be the same as semi-annual. So let's scroll down a bit. And I'll do this. I want to pick up the pace a little bit because I have, if you think this is amazing, wait until we get into annuities. Oh my gosh. Okay. So for a semi-annual, our ending balance is 1,000. So I'm going to type in 1,000 in cell D25. Now I'm going to do the same three formulas. My beginning balance for period 1 is the same as my ending balance for the period before. I can't type in the 1,000 because notice how in the amortization chart above it increases every year. So the only way it's going to increase every year is if I put that formula in, so it keeps taking the increased ending balance every year as the new beginning balance, if that makes sense. So now I hit enter. Now I'm going to put in the same formula, but now because it's semi-annual, I want to take my beginning balance, I multiply it by 10%, but semi-annual is 6 months, so I would now multiply it by 6/12. If you wanted to multiply it by a half or divide by 2, if you're good in math, that's okay, but any one of them is perfectly fine. Semi-annual means that you're earning interest right 6 months before you compound because it's being compounded twice a year. So when I hit enter, I find that the first 6-month period, I'm going to earn $50 in interest. And I use the same formula again, that my ending balance is my principal plus my interest. So again, even 6 rows, no problem. We have our 3 formulas that we need right now. I hit enter to accept the ending balance. I just select the beginning balance, interest, and ending balance on period 1. So I'm going to select cell B26, C, and D. Remember, selecting is different from the fill handle. You click in the middle of the cell and just drag to select. And now watch how cool this is. Once I get the fill handle, because I have these numbers over here, Excel knows to go down to period 6. So I just double click the fill handle, 1340.10, 1340.10. And if you want it to look all nice and even, I can just select all this. And if you're on the Home tab in the number group, just click the icon that looks like a comma. And now it's all nice and even for us accountants. Isn't that nice? Isn't it great? So again, 1,000 rows. These 4 cells are all you'd have to input, even if it was 1,000 rows. Those 4 cells are the only formula. And then copy the formulas from the second row down, and you're all set. Everybody good? Okay, let's go for another 10 minutes. We'll take a short break, but I really hope it's a short break because I'm not feeling very well, but I am having like the time of my life right now. I don't know about you guys, but I am having so much fun, and we have so much more to go through tonight. So I really want to take as short a break as possible. I'm sorry that I'm leaning over right now, but there's some more people who came in. I haven't been looking at my screen for a while, so I want to make sure that people are unlocked. You have to agree with me. Thank you. I appreciate that. Now let's go to our second problem. Our second problem is present value of a single payment. I am going to tell you that this is the one. I'm not going to use an amortization chart. We're going to go pretty quickly for this one. This is the one that has the least amount of applications in your personal life. With present value of a single payment, you're going to make a payment a long time in the future, and you want to know what the value of that is today. So in books, they always give you an example of a lottery. You've won a lottery. They give you an option of getting 20 million 10 years from now. And you're like, wait, 10 years from now, I might be dead. I want my money today. But because of the time value of money, they would give you less than 20 million today. And the question is, how much would they give you today? So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to work the previous problem backwards. In the previous problem, we know that if we invest $1,000 for 3 years at 10%, we'll wind up with $1,331. With the present value, we say, oh, if we wound up with $1,331 at the end, how much did we invest? Okay, so it's just basically the opposite problem. Now, one application of this that you see in business is zero coupon bonds. I don't know if any of you invest and you know anything about zero coupon bonds, but when you have a zero coupon bond, it's normally issued by a very, very new and very risky company. So that company needs $1 million today to buy a robot or get their patent or, you know, incorporate or whatever it needs. So they just promised to pay you back $10 million in 15 years. Okay, so that's an example of a zero coupon bond. So with a zero coupon bond, normally they don't tell you how much they're going to get today, but they make a promise. I will pay you a lump sum of 10 million in 15 years. I will pay you 5 million in 10 years, right? Whatever it is, and they sell those bonds. So whoever owns the bond has the right to get the money in the future. Now, because the companies are very risky, you pay very, very little money for it today. So if you lose your money, oh well, you lose your money. but all you have to do is hit it rich with one of those zero coupon bonds, right? Invest in one Microsoft or Apple. And if you invested $1 million today and got you the 10 million in 15 years, right? You're rich and you've made quite a bit of money. So if we have the, going back to the formulas before, if we have our future value is our present amount multiplied by 1 plus I, the power of n. I hate doing superscripts in Excel. It takes like 18 clicks to do a superscript, and I didn't want to do the little hat because that looks silly when I'm typing. So remember, in the previous example, when we wanted to calculate the future value, we took the present amount and multiplied it by 1 plus I to the nth power. So if we want to solve for the present amount instead of the future value, we just take the future value and divide by 1 plus I to the power of n. So by algebra, our present amount equals the future value divided by 1 plus I to the power of n. So very quickly, because as I said, this problem doesn't have a lot of use, but this one will come in when we do bonds, because bonds have a single payment component at the end of 20 or 30 years. So to calculate the present value of $1,331 at 10% over 3 years, I would take 1,331, our future value, and then I would divide it by 1 plus I to the power of n. So that would be 1 plus 10%, the power of 3. So if I do this, I should get right back to 1,000, because we know that 1,000 increased at 10% over 3 years equals 1,331. So 1,331 decreased by 10% over 3 years should equal back to $1,000. Now, if we wanted to use our formula to calculate the zero coupon bond. So let's say you were looking to invest in a company. They promised to give you $1 million in 10 years. And you said, but wait a minute, if I'm going to invest in your company, I want to earn at least 6.5% quarterly. If I don't earn at least 6.5% quarterly, I'm just going to go for another investment. So what would you pay for this bond? So using formulas, I would take $1 million and I would divide it by 1 plus I to the power of n. So this is going to get a little bit complicated. 1 plus I would be 1 plus 6.5% divided by 4. Would be 1 plus 6.5% divided by 4. All right, and then to the power of 10 years compounded 4 times a year would be 40 periods. So I would have to take my zero coupon bond and decrease it by 6.5% divided by 4 to the power of 40. So the answer to this problem is, I'm going to hit enter. If I pay $524,780.50 today for that bond, and I wait 10 years, and then the company gives me back $1 million, I have earned 6.5% quarterly rate each year over that 10-year period. Okay? And then before we take our break, let's solve the same problems using the PV function. So much easier than that formula. So using the PV function, The first one that I'm going to do is problem 1, or present value. So I'm going to now click in cell B9, formulas, financial, and for present value, we're going to use PV instead of FV. So we use FV for future value, we use PV for present value. So notice I have PV returns the present value of an investment, the total amount that a series of future payments is worth now. So my rate is 10% for problem 1, 10% annually. My number of periods is 3. And once again, if I want the answer to come out as a positive number, I have to put negative numbers in here. I'll get more into that when we go over bonds because we're going to use these formulas with bonds. So in my FV, I type in -1331 because we're taking the present value of 1331 at 10% over 3 years. Notice we get the same answer, 1,000, but a heck of a lot easier than putting in the formulas, right? Way easier than putting in the formulas. So I'm going to click OK. Yell at me if I'm going too fast. Nobody's yelling. And just one more before we take our break. I'm going to click in cell B10. I would like to calculate the price of the zero coupon bond, and I have no idea how to use this formula at all. So I click in cell B10, Formulas tab, Financial, and go down to PV. So my rate is 6.5% quarterly. So I type in 6.5% /4. So as I said before, what is 6.5% divided by 4? Using this formula, it's 6.5% divided by 4. What's 7.9% divided by 12? 7.9% divided by 12, right? Let the computer deal with all of these irrational numbers. Then in my N per, instead of doing 10 times 4 in my head, here I can type in 10 years multiplied by 4 per year, and the 4 once again comes from the quarterly. When you do something quarterly, you do it 4 times a year. Now in the FV, I just put in the FV and I type in -1000,000. Never put in commas in these boxes because if you notice in the formulas, commas separate the arguments. So if I put the commas in here, I'd be taking the present value of -$1 instead of -$1 million. So you just have to count out your zeros. I have one video where I have to take like the present value of 600 million, and I have like nightmares of that video. I'm like 6 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0. Just drives me crazy every time I listen to the video. And notice we get the exact same answer of 52,524,780.46, but again, a heck of a lot easier than trying to remember this formula. Is everybody really jazzed and excited about this?
I didn't get a 1,000 on B9.
B9, you didn't get 1,000?
No.
Okay, let's do that during the break. Okay, so everybody else, it's 6:31. Try to come back if you can by 6:35. I'll get started at 6:37 because we're going to start working on annuities. And if you think this has been fun, oh my gosh, wait until we get to the annuities. We're going to have so much fun. So take your break right now. And the person who had the question about B9, let me start again. So in B9, I'm going to delete it. You want to click in B9, Formulas tab, Financial, and scroll down until you see PV, present value. Okay?
Okay.
So on the rate, you're going to type 10%. In the N per, you're going to type the number 3.
3.
Yeah, because it's 3 years, right? We're doing number one, present value of 1331 at 10% over 3 years. So then in the FV, you have to skip over the PMT, click in the box that says FE, and just type negative 1331, no commas.
And that's it, right?
That is it. Does your answer say 1,000? Because you can see the answer before you click OK.
Wait, I think I did something wrong. The first time it gave it wrong and I didn't erase it like you did.
Yes, you have to start all over again.
I
So click
think
in the
that's
cell.
what happened. They added because I think the first time I put 1,000 instead of the 1331.
Oh, okay.
Now
So-
it was. That's what happened. I didn't erase the answer like you did.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because once again, the problem is a little bit different, right? Take a look at the instructions. The instructions don't say anything about 1,000, right? When you look at line 1. So you just have to use the given information. We knew from the first part that it equaled 1,000, right?
1,000 still from the last one before.
Yeah. They're all different, right? We're doing 4 different problems in, so did it work now?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay,
That's
cool.
what happened.
Okay, good. Take your break for a couple of minutes and then we're going to come back to truly amazing stuff.
Okay.
Okay, I've already started recording again. My heart would have jumped out of my chest if I got 20 or 25 minutes in and I realized that I didn't record this session. But as I said, I do have a video on time value of money on YouTube. It's a little bit more old-fashioned than what I'm going on. I've made it like 8 or 9 years ago, but it does the basic. It explains everything. So let's move over now to our third tab, FVA, which stands for Future Value of an Annuity. So in accounting, an annuity is a series of payments, all the same amount, spaced at exactly the same intervals. So an example of an annuity, $1,000 a year, $10,000 a quarter, $525 a month, $350 semi-annual. It's always the same amount at a regular interval. Now, if you were doing a problem where, let's say in year 1, in year 2, and year 3, let's say in year 1 you were saving $1,000, but in year 2 you got a little richer and you saved $1,200, and in year 3 you got a little richer and you saved $1,500. You couldn't use the annuity techniques because they're not all the same amount. So what you'd have to do is you'd have to look at year 1 alone as the future value of a single payment, then year 2 alone is the future value of a single payment, year 3 alone is the future value of a single payment, and add them together. So once again, the only way you can use an annuity is if it's a series of payments. They all have to be the same amount and they have to be spaced at regular intervals. Once you start missing payments or using irregular payments, you have to use each payment like the techniques that we used in the last 2 tabs as opposed to using the annuity. But as long as they're all the same, spaced at regular intervals, you can use these techniques. Okay, we're not going to use formulas for these, and I really should show you the interest charts. Well, I'll see if I have enough time at the end to show you the interest charts. The book talks about them. They're so old-fashioned. I really don't want to spend a lot of time on the interest charts. I'd rather spend time on this. So for annuities, the formulas are kind of complicated, so I'm not going to take you through the formulas. I'm just going to take you through the functions and then the amortization charts. You could also use the interest charts, but again, super old-fashioned. So I'm going to use 2 examples here. In the first example, I'm going to use the very simple example that they gave you in the book. You're going to save $10,000 per year over 3 years at 10%. So the first year you put in 10,000, second year you put in 10,000, third year you put in 10,000, and you want to know how much you're going to have at the end of the year. Now the first 10,000 is going to earn a couple of years of interest. The second 10,000 is only going to earn 1 year of interest. The third 10,000 is going to be put in right at the date. So we have to use the techniques of annuities in order to calculate the varying amounts of interest. Now, an example of this type of problem is saving money for retirement or saving money for a down payment on a house. So let's say, suppose that you wanted to save money for the down payment on a car. So you decided that you wanted to save $50 monthly over 5 years at 4.5%. The question for the future value of an annuity is, how much money will you have at the end? Now, there are two types of annuities. Number one is known as an ordinary annuity. Most times when you have your house payment or your car payment, it's an ordinary annuity. And with an ordinary annuity, the payments are made at the end of the period. If it's an annuity due, payments are made at the beginning of the period. And notice I have amortization charts down here for an ordinary annuity and an annuity due. And we're going to calculate the future value for the ordinary annuity and the annuity due. So if everybody is ready to go, I am certainly ready to go because annuities are my favorite. I worked in banking for many years and I worked with bond funds and I did all sorts of interest calculations. So I always get in a good mood whenever I have to calculate interest. So in cell B7, we want to calculate how much we will have if we save $10,000, since it's an ordinary annuity. How much money will we have if we save $10,000 at the end of each of 3 years? We want to know how much money we will have at the end of the 3 years. So I'm going to click in cell B7, Formulas tab, Financial, and we're going to go back to FV. We're going to use the same FV function. Remember when I said PMT is for the payment made each period? So in this case, because we're saving $10,000 per year over 3 years at 10%, our rate is 10% divided by 1. So you can leave off the divided by 1. It's just 10%. Our number of periods is 3. And now we go into the payment because we're saving the money. We put it into a savings account. It's a negative expenditure. So we type in negative 10000. Super important that you don't put in any commas because again, if you put in commas, you'll be saving $10 a year for 3 years instead of $10,000 a year for 3 years. Now, the type is where it comes in to an ordinary annuity and an annuity due. And I want you to notice that as you click in the boxes, it tells you below what it wants you to put in there. And notice N per, it describes N. And in the rate, it describes I. So it actually tells you what you need to input. Now, if I go into type, notice the type won't tell you whether it's an ordinary annuity or an annuity due. So it tells you if you want an ordinary annuity, meaning that it's the payment at the end of the period, you type in a 0 in the type or just omit it, leave it blank. Omit means just leave it blank. If it's annuity due, payment at the beginning of the period, you just type in the number 1 in type. And notice if I type in the number 1, the answer is going to change a little bit. But in this one, we want the payment at the end of the year. So we want the type either to be blank, or notice if I type in the number 0, I still get the same answer of 33,100. So the answer to this problem is, if I save $10,000 per year over 3 years at 10%, I'm going to put 30,000 into the fund, but I'm going to wind up with 33,100, which is the principal, what I put into the fund, plus the interest that I've earned. Did that work okay for everybody? Questions? Okay. Did I go too fast through that, or were you able to do it? Now let's do the same one monthly. So let's do how much money will you have if you save $50 monthly over 5 years at 4.5%. So Formulas tab, Financial. Whoops. I was looking to make sure that I'm recording. I'm like really nervous about it right now. And we need our FV because this is a future value problem. So I'm going to click FV. Now for number 2, my rate is 4.5%, but it's monthly, so I have to /12. If you ever get a ridiculously high or low number, it probably means that you forgot to divide by 12 in monthly. So for example, 4.5% per year is per month is very different than 4.5 divided by 12 per month. So if you get a ridiculously large or small number, you probably just forgot to divide by 12. Now, N per, if I save monthly over 5 years, I do something over 5 years, 12 times per year, so it's 60. But again, notice I put in 5 times 12 in the N per. Again, no need for the equal sign because I'm just putting it in the box there. I'm not putting it into a cell. So I'm letting Excel calculate how many payments monthly over 5 years would be. I don't want to sit here with a calculator and do it. Let Excel do it. So now this time, my payment is going to be -50. And if I save $50 monthly over 5 years at 4.5% annual interest, I will wind up with $3,357.28. Now, 50 times the 60 payments means that I put 3,000 into the fund. So it means that over the 5 years, I'm earning $357.28 in interest. Okay? Let's go over that now with the Annuity Due. With the Annuity Due, we're going to put in exactly the same formulas, except in the type, we're going to put in that number 1, right? Because Annuity Due just means the payments are at the beginning of the year or the month instead of the end of the month. So what happens with an Annuity Due, if you can visualize it, every payment is shifted back 1 period, so every payment just earns 1 more period of interest with an Annuity Due. So for my annual, Formulas, Financial, and FV, we're doing number 1 now, the yearly one. So my rate is still 10%. My N per is still 3. I want to go into PMT because I am putting $10,000 each year into the fund. It's not a one-time $10,000 payment. There are multiple $10,000 payments. So PMT is -10,000. But now if it's an Annuity Due, I just put a type of 1 in there, and notice how the answer now changes to 36,410. If I took 33,100 and multiplied it by 1 plus 10%, 1.1, I would wind up with this answer because, again, the difference is that every payment is going to earn 1 more period of interest because every payment just shifts back 1 period. So I'm going to click OK. And I want to pick up the speed a little bit. Let's do the monthly one, and then let's start with our amortizations. And I'm doing great. The last one we have to do is present value of an annuity, and I really hope I get to at least a couple of the applications because they're really cool. So for my monthly one, I'm going to click in cell B11, Financial, and FB. So in this one, we're doing number 2 up above, $50 monthly, 5 years at 4.5%, 4.5%. Monthly is 12 times per year. So to calculate my I have to divide by 12. I have to divide by the number of compounding periods. Every time I make a payment, they're going to recompound. So I have to do 12 compounding periods in a year. 5 years at 12 payments per year. 5 asterisk 12 gives me 60 payments. I'm putting $50 into the fund every month, so negative 50. If your answer comes out as a negative number, it just means that you forgot to put the negative sign in there, and that's fine. You could always multiply it by -1, or if you're writing it down or using it someplace else, right? Just ignore the negative sign. And then if I'm making the $50 payments at the beginning of the month instead of the end of the month, I just put in a type 1. And notice it goes up now to 3369. And again, if I took 3357.28 and multiplied it by 1 plus 10%, I would wind up with the annuity due answer. So I click OK, and now I'm done. Okay? Now,
I did not get that amount on 10B.
which one? B10 or B11?
B10.
Let's try again. Formulas, financial, FV,
Okay.
10%, 3, -10000, and then type of 1. I'm hearing some kids in the background of somebody, so whoever has kids in the background.
That's my daughter.
Oh, okay. Did it work now? Did you get 36,410?
Yes.
Okay, good. Click OK. And now let's move on to amortization.
Okay.
And please
Yes,
mute yourself. Okay, thank you. Now for the amortization charts. If we're going to save $10,000 over 3 years at 10%, what we're going to do is at the beginning of year 1, we're going to start off with an ending balance of 0. Okay? So at the beginning of year 1, we're going to start off with a beginning balance of 0. So remember, I want you to put the formula here in B17 that whatever the ending balance is the previous period, we start off with that as the beginning balance the next period. So I want you to type an equal sign and then click on cell E16, the 0 ending balance. Again, that's going to make it so that we can copy all of the formulas here. If I didn't put in the line 0, we would actually have to go into the second line of formulas and we'd have to copy it unevenly. This way we can copy it unevenly. So I have my beginning balance of 0, year 1. Now I know the interest on 0 is 0, but if we put in the formula, we can copy it all the way down. So in cell C17, because it's 1 year or less, we're going to use the basic interest formula to calculate interest. So I'm going to take whatever is the beginning balance. So I'm going to type an equal sign and click on B17. Then I'm going to increase it by the interest rate, 10%. And then I have to divide by the number of compounding periods in 1 year. So because this is annual, I would take 10% divided by 1. So if you want, you can divide by 1, but 10% divided by 1 is still 1. As I said, I gave an example of a monthly one where we do have to divide. Okay, so I take the beginning balance and increase it by 10%. So of course, 0 multiplied by 10% is still 0. Now the payment, I'm putting $10,000 into the fund each year over 3 years. So at the end of year 1, I put in $10,000. So I'm just going to type the number 10000. Don't input commas in Excel. I'll show you later in the semester how to format the numbers so the commas are in there, but it's bad practice to input a number with the comma in there. So now my ending balance, the last formula that I need, even if this is 1,000 lines, the last formula that I need is my ending balance, is my beginning balance, plus the interest that I've earned plus whatever payment that I make into the fund. Last formula that I need, even if this is 1,000 lines. So I'm going to wait another second. I'm going to take a glass of water here because I'm starting to get very dry.
On the payment, you didn't do a formula. You only typed.
No, typed in just 10,000.
Okay.
No formula. When we get to applications, I'm going to use a formula in that case, because if I had a separate cell here for the payment, then this amortization chart would work with whatever payment that I use. But I'm just trying to teach the basic Excel right now. I'll get a little fancier later in the class. So I hit enter. Now, unfortunately, if I select all of this and copy it down, it's going to change the 10,000 to 10,001 and 10,002. So what I'm just going to do is each column one by one. You can double click or just pull down the fill handle. So I'm going to pull down my beginning balance. Don't worry, it won't work until the end. I'm going to pull down my interest. I'm going to pull down my payment and make sure that it copies, it stays at 10,000 each time. And then I pull down my ending balance formula. And notice for the ordinary annuity, I have exactly the same answer. And now I know exactly how much interest that I'm earning each year, not in total. I know exactly how much interest that I'm earning each year. Okay, did that work for everybody? Now again, for those of you who know something with Excel, if I had a holder cell up here for payment and I typed the 10,000 here, and instead of typing 10,000, I did equals and then clicked on this cell, this amortization chart would work for any payment, but of course it would only work for an interest rate of 10%. So in the applications, we're going to get even a little fancier, I promise. Okay, let's amortize our monthly one. So now we're going to amortize the $50 monthly over 5 years at 4.5%. So we want to figure out how much interest we're going to earn each month. So I've already set up the amortization chart below, and we're going to do it exactly the same way.
I'm sorry.
Mitchell, yes?
I was trying to copy the
Hi.
formula, but it's not letting me do it.
Click on the cell, grab the fill handle, skinny plus, drag it down.
Yeah, but
It won't work until the end. You're going to get funny numbers. Here, watch me. When I copy it down, notice I'm going to get funny numbers. I'm going to get funny numbers.
oh,
And then at the end, it will work.
got it. Okay, perfect.
Okay?
Thank
It
you.
won't work until all the formulas are in, right? Because
All
every number depends upon every other number. So until all the cells are filled, it's not going to work right.
Okay, thank you very
Okay?
much. Mhm.
Now let's do the same thing very quickly for number 2. The only
What I was
difference
gonna
for number
say
2,
was, that for that, if you were gonna do the payments as a cell, I would also include a cell for the percentage rate,
check it
so
out.
that I could,
Check it
so that I
out.
can just change everything.
Check it out. What are we going to do in hopefully 15 or 20 minutes?
Nice.
I already set that stuff up for you. I told you it's coming. Okay, let's move on. Let's now amortize our $50 monthly. Okay, so if we're going to amortize the $50 over 5 years at 4.5% monthly, we're going to do it the same way. Basically, the only thing that's going to be different is our interest formula is going to be slightly different, right? It's now 4.5% per month instead of 10% a year, right? Our payment is going to be $50, but other than that, it's exactly the same formula. So I want to start off with row 0, my ending balance of 0. Again, if I didn't start with my ending balance of 0, then I would have to go to 2 lines of formulas. So this allows me to just put the formulas only on this line. And notice this one goes all the way down to 60 payments. But again, we're only going to have to put in these 4 cells and the number 0. So the same as before. My beginning balance is the same as the ending balance for the period before. So I'm going to do equals and then click on E23, the ending balance for the period before. For my interest, I know it's silly to calculate interest on 0, but again, we'll just copy it down, and next period the beginning balance won't be 0. So for my interest, I'm going to tell Excel to take the beginning balance, multiply it by 4.5%, and then / to divide by 12. Sorry, I think my dog is going crazy. Hopefully you don't hear him too much. He's upstairs. Hit enter. So of course we have 0 interest. Now in this case our payment is $50 because we're saving $50 a month. And we have exactly the same formula for the ending balance. Our ending balance is the beginning balance. Add whatever interest that you've earned and add the payment. I hit enter. I'll take a second. I'll hit enter. And now I do the same thing. I could do it this way and just double click the fill handle, but it'll change the payments to 51, 52, 53. I don't want it to do that. So to keep it from doing that, you just do each column one by one. So I'm just going to double click the fill handle. So in B20, I'm going to click on cell B24 and just double click the fill handle. And again, it's not going to work until it's all filled. Double click the fill handle for the interest. Double click the fill handle for the payment. Make sure it stays at 50. If it changes to 51, 52, there's a little box over here and you can tell it to copy cells instead of doing a series to make it change just to all 50s. And then I just copy my ending balance formula. And when we scroll down to 60, 3357.28, 3357.28. Now,
Cool.
wasn't that cool?
Yeah, I was counting and I click it twice and everything got filled out.
Yeah, even if it's 1,000 rows, just the first row of formulas and just click it down and it just works. Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah.
So with your guys' leave,
How
I'm gonna
is it again? Can you do it one more time? I'm sorry.
do
How do
the,
you click it down? Yeah.
the ending balance, the formula, or just the fill handle. You just double click the fill handle.
Okay.
Okay. If you have a question, stay on until the end at this point because I only have 20. In fact, I have 17 minutes left at this point, and I really want to get to the applications. Okay. Now, with your guys' leave, I'm going to leave the amortization charts. You're going to see that the only difference with the amortization chart is the payment and the interest are reversed because the payment is at the beginning of the year instead of the end of the year. So here, what I would do is I would put a 0 for my ending balance. I would do the same beginning balance. I'm going to do this super quickly because this isn't super important. Then my payment would be $10,000. Now the only difference is my interest would be based on the beginning balance plus the payment because the payment is made at the beginning of the year. And then I would multiply that by 10%. And then my ending balance would be the same, beginning balance plus payment plus interest. So basically I just changed the order of those two. Then fill handle, fill handle, fill handle, oops, fill handle, and notice I come to the same 36.
I just need to see the formula for the interest.
No, I just went quickly over that, okay? See it in the record. Please see it in the recording or stay after class because I really want to get to present value of an annuity, and I'm going to cross my fingers that I can get to applications because I have a car payment calculator over here. So let's get to the last problem, present value of an annuity. With the present value of an annuity, what you're doing is you're buying something today, and then you are paying it off in the future. Okay, so I'm running out of time, so I want to keep the explanations as short as possible. So if I buy a car today and I pay it off at $325 a month, the series of payments of $325 a month is equivalent to what I borrowed to pay for the car. Because if it wasn't equivalent, then the car dealer would make me pay the full amount. So whenever you buy something today and then you pay it off with equal payments in the future, like a home mortgage or a car, that problem is the present value of an annuity. Okay, so the first problem that I have with present value of an annuity, they're asking us to take the present value of $10,000 per year over 3 years at 10%. A better problem that I can use to illustrate this. Suppose you're going car shopping and you know that you can afford $350 a month, right? You don't know how expensive a car you can buy, but you know you can afford $350 a month. So you go and arrange a loan and you wind up with a loan. You say, you know what, I can go 6 years. 6 years is okay. And they quote you 7.9%. How expensive of a car are you buying? Are you buying a $7,000 car? Are you buying a $90,000 car, right? What is the value of that stream? So we're going to use now the same PV function that we used before. So in the example from your book, $10,000 per year over 3 years at 10%. With the ordinary annuity, it's the present value of $10,000 at the end of 3 years for the next 3 years. So I'm going to click Formulas and Financial, and I'm going to scroll down to PV. So this one, my rate is 10%, because this one is annual. My number of years is 3 years. When I was reading this chapter and I saw the simple examples in your book, I just wanted to cry. I'm like, I can do so much better than this. My payment, because I'm making the payment, is negative 10,000. So the present value of that amount is 24,868.52. I'm just going to click OK. Let me know if I'm going too fast. We've used these formulas for a while. Now, a much more valid way to use this PV function. So again, problem 2, I know how much I can afford per month, but I don't know how expensive a car I can afford. Am I shopping for a Mercedes? Am I shopping for a used Toyota? Right? I have no idea. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to now click in cell B9, Formulas, Financial, and PV. So in this case, my rate is 7.9%. I told you I didn't want to use silly rates like an even 10%. That never happens in real life. So I'm going to use 7.9%. And because this is monthly, we have to /12. So what's 7.9% divided by 12? According to Excel, it's 7.9% divided by 12, right? I don't have to worry about what the heck it is. I just put the formula in there. N per 6 years multiplied by 12 payments per year tells me that I would make 72 payments on this car loan. Okay, now in PMT is the payment made each period. I can afford $350 a month. and I'm making this payment, right? I'm spending that money. So I put in a negative 350. If you forget the negative sign, it just means that your answer will come out as a negative 20,000 instead of a positive 20,000. And this is an ordinary annuity, so I leave the type blank. So if I can afford $350 a month car payment for 6 years at 7.9%, I am shopping for a $20,000 car. Okay? Now, for the annuity due, I would use exactly the same formulas, but I would just put a 1 in the type. Okay, so I'd use the PV function exactly the same way, but I would just put a number 1 in the type. Now, amortization of an annuity is super important. So let's just amortize the car payment. Let's not amortize the silly, super easy one. Let's amortize the ordinary annuity of the car payment. So for our car payment, for our ending balance, our ending balance at the end of year 0, which is going to be the beginning balance, year 1 is going to be the loan amount. Because what we're doing is we're trying to pay off this loan. We owe $20,000 and we're trying to pay it off at $350 per month. So in the ending balance, we want to type in the 20,017.78. But to make this easier, I'm going to do equals and then click on cell B9. For those of you who are advanced users in Excel, if I type in 20,017.78, I'm using an estimate because the real answer actually goes out many decimal places. So I'm actually rounding the answer. By clicking on the cell, I'm not rounding the answer. Now, the cool thing about an annuity is we're trying to pay off this loan. So if we're correct, we come down to 0. So I hit enter. So period 1, I start off owing 20,017.78. I owe that money on my car loan. So my beginning balance, period 1, is 20,017.78. Now I'm going to owe interest on this loan, and the interest is going to make me owe more. So we can still see the terms of the loan right up on top here. So I take the beginning balance, multiply it by 7.9%, and then divide by 12. Principal times rate times time. You could also multiply it by 1/12. That's the same as dividing by 12. Yes?
Specifically for that one, it says $50 over 5 years at 4.5%.
Oh, I think I copied. I copied and pasted, so I wouldn't have to do the charts again. Thank you for pointing that out. So that should be...
Sorry about that.
Yeah, I'll just delete that. No problem. Now, my payment is $350 per month. So in payment, I'm going to type in $350. Now, for my ending balance, this is a little bit different. I start off owing $20,000. The interest actually makes me owe more on the loan, but the payment makes me owe less. So I want to add the interest, but subtract the payment. Because again, the goal is that I'm trying to pay off this loan by making a payment of $350 every month. If we're correct, we come down to 0. So I hit enter. And again, if I do this and I copy it down, it'll change the payment to $351, $352. So I'm just going to do each column one by one. And it won't work until the end, so don't worry. I'm going to double click the first column, double click the second column, double click the fill handle for the third. Notice it stays at 350. And now make sure the second formula, the 19,000, not the 20,000. I double click and notice what? What did I do?
That was my thing too.
It should come down to 0. I did something wrong. I'm going to have to figure out what I did wrong because I have like 4 minutes left in class. What the heck did I did something? This is an ordinary annuity. It's 6 years, not 5 years. I should go down to 72. That was my mistake. It should go down to 72, not 60. Now we come down to 0. So now we can see that as we're paying off the loan, the interest part is less and less each month. So that's why when you have a mortgage, when you start off at the beginning, most of your payment is interest. And then when you get down towards the end of the loan, most of it is principal because you owe less on the loan as you start to pay off the principal. Does that make sense? Okay, very quickly, in our last couple of minutes, let's click over to the applications and let's do what Mitchell talked about before. But I'm going to start off first with the car payment calculator because that one is really cool. So notice what I did is instead of typing in the numbers in the formula, what I have is holder cells for the cost of the car, the down payment, the annual rate, and the number of years. And I've already typed those numbers in. So we're just going to do a couple of quick calculations. The first calculation that I'm going to do is the amount financed. So for the amount financed, I'm going to take the cost of the car and subtract the down payment. So 25,000 minus 4,000, of course, gives me 21,000. But now by using the cell references, if I change these numbers, the amount financed is always correct. It always subtracts whatever numbers are in those cells. Now I'm going to go down to the monthly payment. Excuse me, I'm starting to rush. Now to calculate the payment on a loan, we're going to use the function PMT. So I'm going to click Formulas, Financial, and I'm going to scroll down to PMT. PPMT is different. That's the principal payment. We want PMT, calculates the payment for a loan based on constant payments and a constant interest rate. So in the PMT box, in the annual rate, I'm just going to click on the 8.6%. I'm not going to type 8.6%. I'm going to click on the 8.6% and I'm going to /12. In the N per, I'm going to click on the number of years and then I'm going to multiply *12. So notice now it calculated the correct 72 periods instead of the 60 like I did stupidly before. And now in the PV, I'm going to type a negative and then click on the amount financed. So now we can see here, if I finance $21,000 over 6 years at 8.6%, my monthly payment is $374.38. Now this is a car payment calculator because now if I say, oh my gosh, I can't afford $374 a month, I want to keep it under $350, how about if I buy a $22,000 car? How about if I go to 7 years instead of 6 years? Notice how the answer changes. So this is what Mitchell was talking about before, when I use the cell references in the function, right? Notice the only numbers are 12 for the number of months in a year. Everything else are cell references. So when I use the cell references, it updates the formulas automatically. Now, we could do a retirement calculator as well. So I decided that I want to save $500 monthly for 12 years at an annual rate of 4.3% over 40 years. So I would use the FV function for that one. We've already used the FV function. So I would use the FV function to calculate my retirement amount. And then again, I just have to put in the 4.3% divided by 12, 40 multiplied by 12. My amount to save would be $500. But this one is really cool. This one, if you'll bear with me for a moment, you could actually use Excel to calculate an imputed interest rate. So if somebody won't tell you an interest rate, you can use Excel to calculate what interest rate they're charging you. So let's say you go to Rent-A-Center and you see a couch that you love, and at Ashley, that couch costs $3,000, and you say, I cannot afford $3,000. So you go to Rent a Center, and they said, we will let you have that couch for $40 a week over 2 years. The question is, what interest rate are you paying on that couch? So the first thing is we're going to use a function called rate to calculate the weekly rate. But remember, you cannot use a weekly rate in your head because that's non-standard units. So once we calculate the weekly rate, we're going to annualize that rate, which is a very, very simple formula. So to calculate the weekly rate, formulas, financial, and I'm going to scroll down to a function that says rate, which returns the interest rate per period of a loan. So my number of periods is 2 years, but there are 52 payments in each year, so I'm going to make 104 payments on this couch. I'm going to make a negative $40 payment. But I get the couch today that has a value of $3,000. FV is what you, if the couch had like a salvage value, like if they were going to give you $500 back for the couch at the end, you'd put that in the FV. So we would pay a rate of 0.0066287, but as I said, don't even pay attention to that rate. So now to annualize the rate, what you do is you take the weekly rate, you take 1 plus the weekly rate, take it to the power of the number of weeks in a year, so we would take it to the power of 52, and then subtract the number 1. So to annualize that rate, I'm going to open it up with 2 parentheses. I'm going to take 1 plus the weekly rate, close my parentheses, take it to the power of 52, which is the number of weeks in 1 year. I'm going to get that answer and then subtract the number 1. That is the formula to annualize. You take 1 plus the periodic rate, you take it to the power of the number of periods in 1 year, and then you subtract the number 1. So if you want to buy that $3,000 couch, you pay $40 a week for 2 years. You are paying a rate of 41%, not over the 2 years, each year. 41% a year interest is what you are paying on that couch. Pretty cool, huh? Pretty cool what we can do with Excel once we understand the basics of interest and all of that. So with that, I'm 3 minutes over, so I'm going to totally apologize. Ashley, don't worry about it because I'm not on campus today. Actually, this class made me feel a lot better. I'm really energized because I love time value of money, but I have actually been pretty sick for about a day and a half now. So I really appreciate all of you being so flexible. I did not want to put anybody on campus in jeopardy, and I didn't want to put any of you in jeopardy because I wasn't feeling well. I hope you enjoyed class today. I had a blast. I had so much fun today. I will make sure to post this recording. Once you put your name in the chat box, you're ready to go. So you had fun too? I'm so happy because I love this stuff. Oh my gosh, I could spend like an entire Saturday on this and show you so much stuff in interest, but we are going to use it later in the semester when we go for leasing and bonds. We're going to go back into this and I'm going to use Excel. So whenever you put your name in the, thank you so much. Put your name in the box. I will end the recording and I promise that the recording will be up by tomorrow. I know how to do it now. I did it for my morning class. As soon as I hit end recording, I'm going to start the process to download it, re-record it, and post it to Canvas. Have a great evening, everybody. Stay on if you have any questions.